What makes a good watch? What should you look out for when buying a new watch? What is a good quality piece? Now, this is something that is not straightforward, but there are two main considerations that you cannot really discuss. No one can argue against these, and it is, first of all, the build quality of the watch and the movement of the watch. Now let's start with the build quality. It is something that is hard to tell from pictures, so it is something that you have to get hands-on with the watch. But once you are hands-on and you have a little bit of experience with watches, it's something that you usually can feel without even looking into detail. Now, if you are not as familiar with watches, it is something that you can look at, because if you have the watch in your hands, and apart from the feel, you should have a closer look at the details of the watch, such as the finishing of the material. If you look at it under a loupe or a macro lens even, you can see that the finishing might be not so precise, and that might give you indications on the watch. However, something to consider is a price category. You cannot expect to spend $100 on a watch and it having a superb finishing when looking at it under a macro lens. But even within price categories, there are different levels of finishing. I mean, Grand Seiko in the luxury sector is one example of extremely high finishing, and they tend to have some of their hands are sometimes finished at a higher level than some Patek Philippe watches. And we know that Patek Philippe as overall as a brand is obviously much higher than Grand Seiko, but still finishing then is partly, not for all watches, but partly higher than some of the Patek Philippe watches. And so price category is something that you should consider. Same goes for the movements. Let's look at mechanical watches. The movement really is the main factor that defines a good or a bad watch, because it is the heart of the watch. It's what makes a watch work. And let's not forget that a watch is a timepiece. It is there to show you the time. So if your watch is not accurate enough, it's not really doing its job, is it? But again, if you, like myself for instance, I bought a Seiko 5 that was around $100. I cannot expect that watch to be the most precise watch, because they couldn't simply put that time and effort into making a superb movement and then sell it for only $100. However, if you buy a luxury watch, or even if you spend around $1,000 or euros, whatever, you do expect a certain level of precision, of accuracy, because that's what you buy a watch for. And so the combination of both the build quality of your watch and the movement, always relating to a specific price class, is really what defines whether you have a good or a bad watch. Now, having a bad watch over 1,000 euros is more difficult. Having a bad watch in the lower end price category, let's say around 500, from $0 to $500, it is more likely that there are a lot of bad watches. One example of that is Daniel Wellington. Now, I'm not shaming people that have Daniel Wellington watches. However, a Daniel Wellington watch costing £300, for instance, is a bad watch, because it is simply not worth it considering the price that they're asking for. The build quality is just not good. You get more quality from a $100 Seiko 5, although the movement might not be the most accurate, but I don't expect it to be accurate because I only spent $100. If I spend 1K on a watch, I do expect it to have a certain level of accuracy. And you know, some watch brands have certifications for their movements, like COSC, which defines the accuracy of the watch. And obviously a watch that has a COSC certification will be more expensive in general, will be more expensive than a watch that doesn't have that certification, simply because of the process that movement had to go through to get that certification. But at the end of the day, quality is not everything that matters. It is really important when buying a watch, especially when you spend a lot of money on it, but it is also about how the watch makes you feel. So what to take away from this video is that do inspect a watch that you buy. Do inspect the build quality. It's something, as I said, that you can usually feel. If not, then have a closer look at the finishing, how precise the finishing is, but also be realistic with your expectations, with relevancy to the price category that your watch lies in. So again, don't expect high finishing when spending $500 on a watch. It's just not, it's not realistic. However, if you spend a considerable amount of money, more than 1,000 euros and above, then you should have high expectations with relevance to build quality and the accuracy of your movement, and also the power reserve of your movement. So yes, I hope that this was helpful for you. It is something that is not straightforward, but this should give you some indications on how to look for a good timepiece. So if this was helpful, leave a like on this video, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Ciao.